Hi everybody, Sean from Ascend here. Thanks for tuning in today. So I thought I'd make this video to give you a few tips and tricks and ideas to help make your child's transition from primary school to high school much easier by giving you a few tips on how to keep organised at school and what you should bring, what you shouldn't bring, and how you can manage your organisation. I'll show you the way that I would organise myself and what I'd put in my pencil case, what books I'd bring, what folders I'd bring if I were going into Year 7 tomorrow. Okay, so first off, of course, is a pencil case. Now, high quality pencil case, one that's not going to fall apart. It doesn't need to be a super expensive one. This is just a cheapie from Officeworks, but it feels sturdy, it's not going to fall apart in the first term, and it can fit all of our equipment. The one important thing about your pencil case is when you choose it, choose one that can comfortably fit a 30 centimetre ruler. You don't want one that can't fit the ruler and it ends up sticking out like this. Quickest way to lose a ruler or damage the pencil case, and that creates unnecessary stress for your kids. Okay, so I've got the ruler in the pencil case. You want to bring plenty of pens and pencils. I've got about 5 of each here. You might think that's overkill to have 5 of each, but until you start losing them, which is really quite common at high school, whether they get pinched or loaned out and never returned or simply just dropped, you want to have plenty of backup so you don't get caught short. The last thing your Year 7 wants, a week or two into high school, is for their teacher to be growling at them because they haven't got the correct stationery because they lost all their pens. So give them plenty of pens and pencils to make sure they don't fall short. Most likely on your book list as well, you'll have coloured pencils. In high school you use them sometimes, not very often, but definitely still have them because if they're on your book list, you'll need to have them to avoid being in trouble. So I'll pop them in here. You also want to give your child a few good quality highlighters. I've got these nice Staedtler ones. But some good quality highlighters means that their note taking and all the work they do at school, they can make it look really good. And of course, when their teacher draws upon them to get out a highlighter, they have some. Other bits and bobs that your child should have in their pencil case is a pair of scissors, a protractor. I don't have one on me at the moment, but a compass. So a circle drawing compass is important to have for maths. I needn't even say this one, but an eraser and a sharpener is important to have in your pencil case also. A calculator. Your child needs a calculator going into high school, but they need a scientific calculator. Now, a really important tip I have for you with your calculator is when you choose a calculator, if you're not going for the one on the book list, make sure that the calculator has the function to produce a fraction on the calculator. So some calculators don't have a fractions button, and that can be really challenging when you're actually trying to use a calculator to do things with fractions. It makes it really much more complicated than it needs to be for your child when they don't have the fractions button. So this Casio, I can link this one in the description. This is just the stock standard Casio scientific calculator from Officeworks. It has that fractions button, has all the trigonometry ratios on it, your sine, cos and your tan. It has everything your child's going to need all the way till Year 12. So make sure you get the right calculator. Don't leave your child with a calculator that doesn't have a fractions button. On the topic of stationery, I would buy your child a pack of study cards, even from the get-go. They don't need to bring them to school. The teacher will never ask them to have study cards on them straight away. But if you buy these, give them to your child. It's going to help them study. It's going to help them, make them be more inclined to do some study if they've got some study palm cards ready to go. So your child can write terminologies on one side and definitions on the other side of these palm cards. They can write questions and answers, but these are a great tool, a great interactive tool that students actually, don't find too boring to study with. So I definitely pick them up if you're shopping for school supplies. Okay, so now that the pencil case is full of what we need for starting Year 7, let's have a look at the way we're going to organise ourselves and the books we're going to use and how we're going to stay organised with the different pieces of paper that we get handed out, etc. Make sure your child has plenty of exercise books. So you'll need one for each subject, each of the mesh subjects. So that's maths, science, HAS and English. If you're at a Catholic school, remember that RE is one of your core subjects, religious education, so make sure you've got a book for religious education as well. You also want to have a couple of spares on hand. So if your child has a locker at school, send them with a few spare books and they can store them in their locker. That way, if they fill up a book, if they lose a book, they can grab another one that same day and they're not going to be caught short, causing unnecessary stress for your child. Now, I quite like a 96 pager because I'm confident that you don't normally fill up a 96 pager in a year. Maybe for some of those subjects that you use them for, like maths, you might fill it up, but a 96 page book is not too heavy, but it's not too small where you're going to be replacing the book every 5 seconds. I'm also a fan of exercise books with a ruled line on them. That's a personal preference thing, but I think having a ruled line just makes things tidier and cleaner and neater. And your child's gonna value having that to save them ruling up every day. So I've got 7 of these exercise books to send in with my child, or that I'm going to take to school on my first day. Enough for my subjects, and as well a couple to stick in my locker that I won't need for my classes. I also have a number of 48 pages. Now, I've only got 3 of these, but I've chosen to have a few 48 pages because these are really handy to use if you have like an elective subject or an option subject like art, like design, IT. They might require you to have an exercise book, but you definitely won't be getting through a 96 page exercise book in an elective class, given you usually only have them once or twice a week anyway. So a couple of smaller books are really handy and they don't load up your child's folders too much. And of course, don't forget a graph book. This will be on your book list, of course, but don't forget to send a graph book and make sure that goes with your child's maths book. Okay, so we've talked about exercise books. Now, in the digital age, we're moving away from exercise books in some respect, but we definitely still need them because a lot of things are done on the computer. However, for maths, for science, all that note-taking and questioning is typically done in the book, so don't overlook getting some good books. So let's have a look at our organisation. How are we going to keep on top of where everything is, especially once we start throwing loose paperwork in the mix that our teacher hands out to us? We don't want to be putting that paperwork inside of books and getting it all crumpled and lost because, again, that's unnecessary stress for your child, and the last thing you want when they're trying to settle into high school is to have a messy brain with a messy setup. They're not organised. It's just going to turn into a nightmare for your child and yourself as well. So we've got that sorted. Let's look at how we manage and organise these books and all the loose paperwork we receive. Before I show you the choices in folders and the method I would use to organise myself, I chose to pick up one of these for the purposes of telling you what not to get. So this is like a stationery case. It's a solid, hard plastic folder. It has some latches and it opens up like this. Now, I've seen lots of students use these to store an exercise book, and let's say this is some loose paperwork. So that's pretty okay, but as the paperwork stacks up, as you get more and more papers, these things become harder to close. And eventually, and we know what kids are like, it'll get to a point where they can't close it, so they'll push and shove, and they might close it on this occasion, but it's going to break very shortly. And you don't want a broken folder with all your papers flying out in the wind while you're walking between classes. So, I mean, if you like these, that's fine, you can use them, but make sure the child knows that, hey, when it gets full, it's time to clean it out. But personally, I wouldn't be using these hard folders because I don't like them very much. On the other hand, these softer folios, binder folios, are really quite handy. These are just a binder. They've got your sort of binding rings inside. You don't really need to use them, but a great piece of kit. These are about $5 a piece. So I would be getting one for each subject, or you could get a couple and put 2 subjects together, but having one for each subject is awesome. They zip up, so all those pieces of paper, all those books are going to stay in there. And my little recommendation would be to put a Dymo label or even write on there in permanent marker what subject it is, and obviously the student's name as well. So if you put a label on here for the subject, that can actually sit in the student's locker on their shelf. And if you get a couple of them, they can sit side by side. And you can imagine a student standing at the locker, they see that maybe after recess they're getting their books for class and they've got science and maths. This is the science folder, this is the math folder, grab them and they're off. Perfect way to organise your kit. Now inside of these there's a way to go a little bit deeper in your organisation, which I really like, especially if you're using one of these folders for more than one subject. So let's say I was using this folder for maths and science. I would put my maths book in here. I would put my science book in here. And of course, being maths, I'll put my graph pad in here too. I'd also take two of these document wallets, just regular document wallets. Try and get two different colours if you can, because we can easily tell the difference between them. And I would put a label on these. If this is maths and science, this one can be maths, this one can be science. And all those loose pieces of paper can have that one more layer of protection. You slide those pieces of paper, let's again pretend this is our piece of paper. Slide those pieces of paper into the document wallet. Close it shut, and that will fit snugly in with the books. And you can still, believe it or not, zip these folders up, and everything will fit snugly. So that's not going to get damaged, that's not going to get lost, and it's a really, really efficient way to organise things and stay on top of where everything is. So you may choose to set a few of these up for 2 or 3 subjects per folder, or go the extra mile and get a folder for every subject. Make sure they're labelled really well, give them all a document wallet or however many document wallets they need based on the subject, and you'll have a very good and well organised setup for your child. So what about when your child gets homework and they need things from school? Well, there's 2 ways to do that. If you're utilising 2 or 3 of these folders for all your subjects, I would be so inclined to say that as long as you keep on top of them and don't have, paperwork from term 1 in here when it's term 4, you can pop all 3 of those in your school bag and take them home every day. That's no big deal. But if you're using maybe 4, 5, 6 of those for different subjects, that might be a bit bulky. So what I'd recommend is dedicating one of these folders as your homework folder. So when a student is given homework, when a student's assigned homework for a subject, they can slip what they need into this folder to bring home. That way they're not carrying everything home, and complete their homework, come back the next morning at their locker. The student could remove their homework item from their homework folder and put them back into the relevant folders. So that's a really good way to limit what you're taking home, but also not get anything damaged. So I hope these few tips helped out a little bit. Really quite designed to just alleviate some nerves and some stress from your children, because it's already a really scary, really nerve-wracking time as they move from primary school to high school. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you have, like, comment, share, appreciate it, and best of luck for the year ahead. Thanks, guys.